So before we start off the show today, we wanted to make sure that we give recognition to what's going on in the world right now with Black Lives Matters and all of the protests. And we obviously are not the people to listen to about that. Listen to the voices that that have these experiences that are less fortunate than us out of privilege. If you, Owen, you want to say a little bit about it?
Uh, Honestly, I agree that we're not the right avenue for it. We were gonna do news as usual this week, but I don't really feel like anything news wise is that important. We're still gonna do a show. Um, Take a little bit of time away from the seriousness, but uh, that doesn't mean we don't um, respect what really matters right now. So we completely understand if you don't want to tune in tonight, if other things are going wrong. Uh, I completely understand. Patrick completely understands. But we still wanted to have a little bit of fun as we normally do every Thursday. But educate yourself. Uh, there's a lot of people that you can listen to right now. There's a lot of books you can read right now. There's uh, a lot of literature out there. If anybody's interested in more, they can message the show, and I'll be happy to share anything. But we didn't really feel that we were really the voices to be talking about this. So that doesn't mean we're ignoring it, though. So we just wanted to put that out front.
That's right. So thank you for watching or listening, and let's start the show. Welcome to the LANCave, where we're living as nerds. I'm Patrick, joined by Owen.
Hello.
If you couldn't tell by our fancy banners, we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII spoilers. So, banners up. It's tagged in the video. It's in the title of our stream. Hopefully, that's enough warnings for everybody. We will be spoiling Final Fantasy VII Remake. We'll be talking about things that are in the original Final Fantasy VII. Some stuff from other Final Fantasy lore. I will say I'm not as much of an expert as some people are on like Advent Children, Dirge of Cerberus, and stuff like that. But we will be talking about a little bit about that in here. So if you don't want to be spoiled by any of that, then go ahead and click out and so still subscribe and what have you. But if you just want to hear more about it and better understand, or maybe you don't have time to play it, so, and you want to know how is this different, we'll kind of talk about it a little bit. Owen and I, this is one of our favorite games, if not favorite game. One of us has a tattoo having to do with so not to out anybody here, but it's funny.
It's okay.
It's funny because you were gonna already have one, and I've been considering a tattoo from this game to try to figure out what I want it to be. But yeah, yours is Shinra for yours, and tempted to do that, not to copy, but just that's just cool. My Wi-Fi for a long time was Shinra HQ was my Wi-Fi. So yeah, big fans of the original Final Fantasy VII. I finally finished it last Friday. You finished it, I think, a week prior.
Yeah, I did.
To give us time to digest and kind of think about it. Overall thoughts before we start talking about differences and all that kind of stuff. What did you think?
This game was dope. It's a great game. It is not without flaws. And I don't know how much time we're actually going to spend on the technical aspects of the game and everything, but there are some pacing issues where it makes you do a few too many side quests to kind of move on. Yeah. You don't have to do them, but it's kind of well, I'm here. There's points in the game where it's well, if you don't do them now. But the game itself is super dope. The way they did the story was great, and I don't have a problem saying that it is the best action RPG definitely team wise. Like individual wise, I don't, it would be a lot different. But like in terms of like a team based action RPG, when I say team based, I mean like having multiple party members. It's the best action RPG mechanically I've ever played. Like the combat, it takes a little getting used to, but man, when you have 3 party members in there, it is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
To play.
I totally agree, and I'm glad you put that caveat in it, because I would say, as much as I love this game, bias aside, mechanics in this
Sure.
game are fantastic. 15 didn't feel locked in; it didn't feel as tactile when you're using melee.
Yeah.
Obviously, spells are spells. There's delay or non-delay, whatever. But
Yeah.
this game, I actually felt like Cloud swinging a sword. I felt like Tifa beating the crap out of somebody, hitting that square button as fast as I could. It felt more action oriented than like we said than like 15, which I think 15 was trying for this blend. It was trying for the Kingdom Hearts esque connection, and that's what I was saying. I'm glad you had that caveat of like team based, because I would say that the Dark Souls games have nailed RPG action hands down. But this somehow brought it all together. I will say, being able to pause and issue commands where it didn't feel like I was pausing. It felt like I was slowing down time, but I still had some ticking clock going on. It's still really slow, but Whitney felt pressure on that. But like I knew that it was the game trying to get you to make your decision, so you didn't hit that button and then walk away. That was kind of the idea behind it. But yeah, I loved the elements. I loved the addition of I guess for this sake, we could talk about like the addition of adding enhancing your weapons, because that wasn't in the original. Materia's in this one, but being able to level up your weapon as you become more connected to it, as you use it more, I think was really cool. The game was so, I was having so much fun. I don't know if I told you about this. I didn't mess with that for like literally 9 chapters.
Well, like the weapons?
Yes.
Did you just not know about it?
I knew
or
about
did
it,
you
and I was like,
forget?
oh yeah, that's a thing, and then I forgot.
Oh man, was the game a lot harder for the beginning then?
No,
Oh really?
I wasn't.
Okay.
I really wasn't struggling. I had a little bit of struggles on the house in Mall Market and a few others, but it wasn't that much harder. But as soon as I upped, like I literally maxed out the weapons that I had when I remembered that it was a thing. And I maxed out all my weapons, and then it was easier. But by that time, I was towards the end of the game, so it really wasn't that big of a deal. But I'd say, compared to the original Final Fantasy, I think there's so much lore in here that's connected to the original, but also pulling from other sources that are in the Final Fantasy VII universe, which, I've not played Dirge of Cerberus, I've not played Crisis Core, I saw Advent Children when it came out, so sure. I don't remember. I know some of the references, but it wasn't until after I completed it and looked into a little bit more and watching the Easy Allies spoiler cast on it, where it kind of opened up a little bit of that for me and went, that fills in some gaps. And there's definitely stuff that we're going to talk about here where I think we're going to try to caveat, where we'll say, like, this is what the game told us versus we think this is happening. We really try to separate that, because a lot of people will start going on a path and be like, this is what they mean. We don't really know, so we will try to separate that. So the game does have changes. I guess this is when we're kind of, if you want to jump into the big change that has to do with this game. Do you want to give first crack at explaining, or
Well, so character change wise, it kind of depends on where we want to start, but like I think one of the biggest changes that is like a lot more apparent is with Aerith.
Yes.
Which that took a little while to get used to calling her that, but after you hear the voice acted name like a jillion times, Aerith kind of sticks in your head. But it'll always be Aerith in my heart. but Aerith seems to know what's going on, which is a little weird. You know, in the original, she had moments of like knowing when things were happening, like she's, you know, was always like connected to the planet and everything. But in this case, there seems to be a lot more focus on the fact that she knows her fate. And I don't, it's been a while since I've completed the original, and you know, I should go back and play it now with these kind of eyes, but I don't recall her being that in tune.
She wasn't.
I think that they did capture, like, in terms of like her goofiness and like her like kind of keeping everything light, the fact that, and it's even crazier that she's able to know what's going to happen and also keep it light.
Yeah.
I think that that's pretty interesting about her, but that's probably like other than Sephiroth showing up very early in the game, like that's probably the biggest like overall change.
Sure.
That's probably not true, but in terms of like the one that's like most apparent right off the bat.
Yeah, of the main characters, yeah, definitely. I mean, we see more of these characters. Obviously, we go more into their story, and right now we're just comparing this game to the end point of this remake as in comparison to the original. So, leaving Midgar in the original versus this game, you dive more into Tifa in this game. You really dive into Jessie, which I didn't expect. I really liked Wedge and Biggs, but like I didn't know, because both of us went in blind in our playthrough. I didn't expect it to go as much into Jessie's family. It goes into her history of her hopes and dreams, and I think you sent me a polo where you're like, they're really going to make us really like cry when she goes, because you get so invested in her. And Biggs and Wedge are great. Wedge is definitely comic relief. Biggs is great. You can see his heart because he does work with the school, and which is like a school for like poor children in the slums. And so you're like, man, you get really invested in these characters, and playing the original. In the original, they all three die. So the entire time when I'm doing that, knowing that, I'm thinking, I'm just getting more connected with characters. That I want to say Biggs and Wedge had like 6 lines in the original. It wasn't very much. Jessie had her exposition about the trains, but not a ton. We don't get to know them, so that was different. Like you said, Aerith is, she knows what's going on. In the original, she could sense things, kind of like an Obi-Wan Kenobi style, like something's happening.
Disturbance.
And this she's like, I'm not supposed to. Ooh, I shouldn't tell you about this yet. That kind of situation where we'll get more into that later. And then Sephiroth showing up in chapter 2.
It's very early.
Completely shocked me. Yes, chapter 2, because chapter 3 is when you get to Seventh Heaven, and I was just completely shocked seeing him there. Once you beat the game, then you kind of know a little bit more, and we'll go into some more theories about it. But I think those are the big changes in regards to characters. Story wise, we had expansions on quite a few things, and I'm trying to remember what was the first big change from the original. I think it would have been the vision for Sephiroth, because you get detoured.
Yeah, Sephiroth showing up is like the first, like, holy crap, like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to normal a lot. With the story, like, they do add a lot more depth into like Sector 7. They really make you care a lot more about what's going to happen to it. But in terms of like story wise, like the biggest like right away is like Sephiroth shows up and you're like, okay, and it gets you in the way that Cloud experiences it.
Mm-hmm.
It really starts getting you like wondering like what's up with Cloud. Like, are they, obviously like Cloud's seeing this, but like, is he gonna go crazy?
Yeah.
Is he like, there's moments in the original where he does have like a short crazy period, but that doesn't happen until after Midgar.
Yeah, he doesn't have a flashback until I forget the name of it. The right after Midgar, the city that you're in, when they do an exposition dump in the original, you find out about
Nibelheim,
Nibelheim
yeah.
and all that. That's the first time we get flashbacks in the original. They had a couple times where, it was either anxiety or like head pains, like he kind of grabs his head and then he's like, "Oh, it's nothing," and he continues. I feel like that was expanded on, and in the original, up to this point, I think you've heard Sephiroth's name like twice, but they didn't go into who he is. You definitely didn't know about Genova at this point. I know. They may have mentioned her. I can't remember, but they're trying to info dump a little bit in this game, definitely towards chapter 17 and 18. It's like, here's all the info that you wish was sprinkled throughout the rest of the game, so people who played the game kind of understand what's going on. But as you mentioned, there are some times where I feel like they were padding in the side quests for Sector 7 and Wall Market. And then after the second time through Wall Market, I'm like, I don't understand why all of this is here, other than to give me a chance to experience more of the game. But it was all side quests that didn't really matter, in my opinion. So that's kind of how I felt about it. But it was definitely, I definitely liked the story. There were changes, and people are outraged by the changes of the ending. But as you mentioned, you also mentioned what Aerith's saying, and also there's a couple other moments throughout the game where things start to happen that shouldn't, or that are different, I should say, than the original. And then you have the whispers coming in. They're, Whitney, call them Dementors because they just fly. They're flying in and they look very much like.
I was calling them like time wraiths.
Yeah, exactly. It's which when I started playing it, I didn't know what they were, and when you find out, they're trying to write the timeline. They're trying to keep the timeline intact, or as they refer to it as like destiny. Like, destiny has this path, and if something deviates, they push people back the way they're supposed to go. Perfect example is we mentioned Sephiroth, with having his vision of Sephiroth takes you off the path of meeting Aerith, and then when you first see her, which I think I have it queued up here, I do. When you first see her, they pop in and kind of move her towards you. Like, you may or may not have met her had it not been for that. May or may not have been the situation, but there's definitely others that are overt, and then Sephiroth intervening again. There are other times where they definitely interfere, and also Aerith says, like you mentioned, she's saying things she doesn't normally say. She mentions Zack's name in what was that, chapter 6 or whichever chapter.
It's either like 5 or 6. It's whenever they're on the way.
Yeah, when they're on the playground.
Yeah,
they're on the playground, and she mentions his name, and it like blanks it out, like, because Cloud couldn't hear it. And I thought that was really cool. Like, it was like it hurt him to hear that name, because he has this disassociative personality of who he actually is, that again does not get spoiled in this game. So some people were actually confused about the ending because of that. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff. I was I really liked it, and I liked a lot of the references. But definitely Aerith knows a lot, and we can go into theory on why that is later. But yeah,
I think the biggest weird thing for me, like, there's things to talk about Sephiroth, and we can talk about him a little bit, but it's just the like, in terms of like the middle of the game, A lot of that, a lot of it's just really like big expansion. Like
Yeah.
Walmart's really cool. I need to go back and do some of the arena stuff in there, but like they
Yeah.
made that house fight, like that was a really cool inclusion in terms of that boss fight. The soldier whose name I've forgotten right now that
Uh,
we fight on the bike.
yeah. What was his name? It wasn't Reese. Yeah, I'll look it up. I'll look it up. Yeah, his fight was cool.
Uh, and you see a little bit of what being a soldier can do, where he's just, you know,
Roche.
obviously like nuts at Roche. There
Yeah.
we go. Yeah, he's nuts. But really, they really put the gas on. Like once you get to Shinra HQ, like I feel like it became like almost a completely different game
Same.
once they got there. Like I was not expecting what happened, like any of it. I thought, okay, cool, you know, we expanded on Midgar, we're going through, we're chilling, yeah, like, hey, all right, now we're at Shinra HQ, it's gonna be business as usual. I'm gonna climb through some vents, I'm gonna get some key cards, you know, I'm gonna see the sword, and then none of that happens. And Shinra is really like what took the game from being like, all right, this is cool, to like, this is dope. Everything about what they did with the president and then Rufus, that was all cool. Like, that's where you really start to wonder what's going on with the Whispers, because things that Barrett, man, he straight up like dies, and you're about to be like, oh.
Yeah, I dropped an F-bomb when I saw that.
And then he doesn't die.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, what just happened? And it becomes like they're working against us, they're working for us, but no, it turns out that they're not doing either of those things. Before I go too much farther into story, though, like, what did you think of the fight with Rufus?
Okay, the fight with Rufus, similar to the fight with Roche when you actually are fighting him like sword to sword.
Yeah.
I realized how, I think they did this on purpose. I realized how Cloud isn't that great at swordplay, and I think they're purposely showing that when you fight. Like, Roche is like barely trying, and he deflects and he hits you. But I mean, I thought the fight with Rufus, first of all, if I'm not mistaken, in the original, doesn't show up until like well after this, right? I can't remember.
No, he shows up while they're at the building.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
You have to. You're trying to. No, I mean, where is it that you get him the first time? Because. Yeah, no, you definitely fight him. Okay. He's the boss of Midgar, pretty much. Like, because they try and escape, and Cloud's like, you go, and you fight Rufus and his dog.
I mean, I love the fight with the dog. I will say, like, the dogs throughout the game were vicious. I like their teamwork, and I like the phases. Like, this was a subtle. Like, from game design standpoint, I was like, oh, okay, this is phase 1, this is phase 2, whatever.
Yeah.
I could see that. The only that will be one of my gripes with the game is I'll have a limit break like queued up, and I'll get ready to do it, and then it'll trigger a cutscene for the boss to go into the next phase, and then I lost my limit break, and that happened to me twice in the game. But I thought the fight was cool, but it definitely, because he's resistant to like everything, I had to do a lot of like tactical like setups to try to get my limits going, and I think that's what basically won it for me, was like taking enough damage to get my limit and then hitting a cross slash or something on him.
How long did it, after you got rid of the dog, how long did it take you to find out how to actually hit him?
How to actually,
or did you ever figure it out?
I didn't figure it out. Like, I was trying to kept like parrying, and I'm like, I gotta. So I figured I would have to parry it. I don't know if that was so. How do you hit him?
So he does a move called reload.
Yeah.
and every time he does reload, that means you can hit him.
Okay.
It's because he's shooting you with his gun, and he has to reload his gun, so you can't hit him until he does reload. Otherwise, he just parries and hits you. Luckily, the game on normal isn't too punishing with that. I imagine on hard it will be, because it took me. I was fighting him for probably over 10 minutes, and then I was like, I was this close to looking it up, and then I was like, wait, I have a really hard time watching like the text of moves. That's why I still haven't beat Leviathan. And so, because apparently the Leviathan fight is just it's all about patterns. So I was like, wait, what? Reload? Like, he's not doing anything to me when he does reload. Pop, pop. And then it became a lot easier still. But that still was like way over 10 minutes of just me. Like, I had already killed the dog. That was hard enough as it was. And then I was just like, why can I not hit this guy? But I think you're right. It does show it does show where it's like, was Cloud really first class? Because Sephiroth was first class.
Yeah.
And he would have just killed this guy.
Yeah, and that's one thing that like you and I know. About Cloud and everything, but leading up to it, I feel like they were trying to hint at it more. I think that's why you fought a soldier, and you fight another soldier, and he's making fun of you, and he's like, "Oh, this is a challenge," and like you still didn't beat him. And Cloud, when you start the game, and when I first played the game, and I'll say this is definitely the first RPG that I beat. But I spent a lot of time exploring. I've spent a lot of time failing. But still, you think that like Cloud is supposed to be like one of like he's supposed to be soldier first class. He's supposed to be cool. He's like the epitome of cool with his sword and everything. And I feel like in this game, like he's putting on that persona. He's giving that off, like trying to get people to think that he's that. And then you fight a soldier, and it's like, holy crap, this guy is powerful and he's not even trying. So that was interesting to me. I didn't catch if I caught the reload thing. It didn't click for me, because I remember I beat him by hitting limit breaks, because he didn't carry limit breaks. But
well, and you actually find that out if you were you assessing throughout the game?
I was assessing. I thought I was assessing almost everything, but apparently I was not assessing enough, because I didn't get to do the Leviathan fight. So
yes. So if you assess Rufus, it says that he's resistant to everything and weak to one move, and it doesn't tell you what the move is, but then you find out that it's cross slash.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, because I was cross slashing him, so
yeah,
that works.
There was another cool thing, like, again, before, like, it's like too deep in the story, but like where the couple times that Avalanche shows up, like what I'm calling the real Avalanche, like, because it doesn't seem like Barrett's cell is really like a thing, and they actually talk about that, where like Barrett is apparently too extreme, which doesn't surprise me because he's Barrett, and I thought that was cool. Like, it happens after the Roche fight, whenever they're getting like the bomb stuff for the second bombing mission, and then it happens again with the helicopter at Shinra headquarters, and you're like, oh dang, like there's way more to this, and apparently there's a lot more to that in games that we didn't play. So that just means that there's like a lot of things that I don't know about Avalanche. But I thought that was like just a cool inclusion to show, like, it wasn't just this band of 4-5 people that were trying to do things. And then there's a lot of mention of Wutai, which I thought was interesting, because I don't really like. I know where Wu-Tai is, and obviously there's a character that you get in the
Mhm.
original associated with that, but I don't really remember it being that explained that it was like Wu-Tai versus Shinra. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if you remember anything like that,
I
but
Yeah.
that was very different too for me in terms of just like background lore. It's this thing that that they just kind of talking about. It's
Mhm.
just kind of there, and it makes me um, a little excited on what they might do with that in the following game. Are they going to expand on Yuffie more? I'm really excited about Yuffie combat too. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be sweet. But yeah, I don't know if what you thought about the Wu-Tai stuff.
Yeah, I don't, I remember the name, but I really don't remember the depth of the depth that they were talking about the war, and that Sephiroth was part of that war. I think that may have been where I remember a little bit more of it, because of course I remember the village, but like um, the reference to the war that Sephiroth was fighting in, and by the time Cloud got it, like the war was over. I think I feel like I remember that as part of the original, but I may be wrong. I'm going to
It
replay the
was.
original. It was okay, so yeah. So that's what I remembered of it. But other than that, like they're making a lot more connections. It's becoming a little bit more deep in the political connections between the two, and they're trying to essentially. They're trying to have Avalanche be the patsy, be the fall guy, and essentially to get Shinra into war with Wu-Tai is kind of the idea, and to get people to one, hate Avalanche, and two, blame this other nation, so that way people are more emboldened in their connection to Shinra and Midgar, um, which they show like right off the bat. That also surprised me too, as opposed to hearing about that later on. It was like, no, this is connected in the first chapter. So I thought that was cool. Um, so in regards to we talked a little bit, and we'll kind of start to talk about things that are different. We talked about the Whispers. Whispers are trying to write destiny, and Um, Sephiroth showing up too early in this game, purposely. The theory, I'll put this in theory because I think it's pretty strong, but the game does not tell you it. But the theory is that Sephiroth is from the Advent Children future, and has come back to correct the timeline, if you will. He's trying to make it so that he wins and that we don't stop him at the crater. And the Whispers are kind of fighting against him, but it's Sephiroth, so he's using them against us as well. So it's pretty cool in how genius that is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty set on it. I'm pretty set on it. Like, if it's not like Advent Children
Yeah.
necessarily, um, it's definitely at least some kind of like alternate reality Sephiroth or
Sure.
something. But I think that just with a lot of the other stuff that they've mentioned in the brief amount of research that I've done, where they're pulling so much from all these other games that probably a lot of people haven't played, um, the I think there's a lot of respect going on
Mhm.
for their knowledge. There's plenty of people making the argument that they're not respecting like the game proper, and I'll disagree. I just think that I think that they took the title of Final Fantasy VII Remake seriously,
Mhm.
and they're like, we're remaking
Yeah.
this game.
Yeah.
We're not just remastering. We're not just making it look pretty. Like, we're doing something cool here, and we're letting you know that we're not effing this up
Yeah.
by showing you, like, because they had the one-winged angel,
Mhm.
Sephiroth in there. That doesn't happen um,
Until Advent
uh,
Children, right?
until Advent
Yeah.
Children. They have this different version of Aerith.
Mhm.
They have these other changes, and they're being very meta with it with these whispers, and so I'm very dead set on it being like, this is future
Mhm. Mhm.
Sephiroth. He has ascended somehow. That like I feel like it's kind of like the Legend of Zelda timeliney, where it was like this is if they had lost that crater, or this is if they had lost the advent children.
Yeah.
Like this is the child timeline. This is the I feel like there's something like that going on here.
Yeah. And I think added to that, Red 13, when Cloud gets a vision, and I thought about this immediately when he says it. Red 13 answers when we were like, "What was that?" And Red 13's answer is, "That's what happens if we don't win here today." And I was like, "Wait a minute, but that's the good ending. That's what happened in the original. That's not the good ending." That's immediately what I thought. Was like, because I remember that from, and I even had it queued up because it's a really cool part in the original, and the original ending, seeing Red 13 and his cubs, like essentially like the fight continues, and like the planet continues to because they won. And
ooh, look at that FMV.
What's that?
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
I said, "Ooh, look at that FMV."
Right. That was cool stuff back in the day, kids. I was trying to find the one which I have all the footage, but I didn't have time to like go through all of it. But I was trying to find that spot in the view of him riding into battle with Kate Sith, and he was like, "Oh, this is what's going to happen if we fail." Which that's the second appearance of Kate Sith, because Kate Sith appears when the plate falls. And
yeah,
did that give you a WTF when you saw that?
Yeah, because I don't get what he's doing there.
Same.
I don't get why, other than like being like, "Hey guys, this is Kate Sith," because I don't remember if we ever actually see the real Kate Sith in the original.
You do. Yeah, okay. You see him in corporate.
That's right.
You see Rufus in corporate, which
like flashes.
Yeah, and he does. Well, he does. There's a spot when they're talking about. I want to say it was in the first set when they're having their corporate discussion. He's there, but they expanded on it in this one where they're, because for those of you who don't know, Kate Sith is the cat that you see in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, who is an animatronic being controlled telepathically by Rufus. I'm pretty sure it's telepathically. Rufus is shown in the remake as like he really cares about like the restoration of the city. He cares about the planet. He's one of the people in Shinra, which I did like that they expand on this more, but he's like one of the people at the top of Shinra who really cares. And there's a lot of people underneath the C-level executives, if you will, like the presidents and vice presidents and C-level people. Like all of those workers care about the planet, but they're like kind of drinking the Kool-Aid on Shinra. And then you've got the upper echelon who are kind of terrible, and he's like one of the only good people. In the original, he essentially telepathically controls Kate Sith, the cat, riding a Moogle. Again, it's all animatronic. Is the Moogle animatronic or is the Moogle real? Do you remember?
I don't.
Okay, I thought they were both animatronic. Anyways, but in the game, like he's spying on Avalanche. It's Shinra and him spying on Avalanche. So when he shows up here, when the plate falls, I was completely confused, like you were. Like why is he? Does he like go around as a cat like for fun? So I was kind of confused about that. I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, I just don't I don't understand if they're making Kate Sith like a real being or not.
Maybe they are.
So that's the only thing. That's the only thing that makes sense to me as to why we're seeing this. Like, no,
yeah, like pounded on the plate.
Otherwise, why would Kate Sith need to be? Why would that thing need to be out and about right now?
He could be watching from the tower.
I don't know. He just wants to let you know that he's the most useless character in the game.
As a kid growing up, I thought Kate Sith was cool, but only because it was like it was weird, and I knew it was weird. And that's the one thing out of all of this, like Red 13, straight up awesome, cool character. But like,
I'm still upset that we couldn't play with it. I still don't get that. Yeah. It makes zero sense to me why we couldn't control him.
I think the idea was because he didn't trust the team. I think that's what like the idea of like he kind of doing his own
Could
thing.
be.
He's independent. Yeah, I kind of was irritated about it as well. That's kind of how I felt about it. I was like, okay, he's not Avalanche. He's not on my side. He just happens to be here with me. That's kind of how I felt about it. But yeah, he's one of my favorite characters.
And a side note, with how good the combat is in this game, Vincent, dude,
Yeah.
Vincent is gonna be dope to play with. Vincent is gonna be fun.
I cannot wait.
That I'm super excited about. Anyways,
I want to bring up here, because we're talking about Kate Sith, though. Did you know
yeah.
the pronunciation is supposed to be Ket She?
No, I mean I just speak English, and I don't mean that in a mean way.
Yeah.
I just say it how I read it. It's
Yeah.
just it, you know, CAIT,
Yeah.
Kate.
It's
I could see you making a case for that being kite, like AI, because in German, the second vowel does the talking in German, so you could be like kite Sith,
yeah.
but like ket, like that.
It's apparently Gaelic. So I don't know. I'm calling him
Is
Kate.
it Gaelic for worthless characters?
I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. I honestly don't remember, but it was one of those like weird trivia things, and I was like, "That's dumb." I'm not, like, it's Kate Sith. But yeah. Anyways, the other character who shows up, who you don't find out about him until, I mean, Aerith references Zack. She doesn't call him by his name, but she talks about him. And I think it was like, what is it, halfway through the game when you find out about Zack, like originally in the original.
Oh, in the original,
Yeah.
It's a while. Like,
Yeah.
I think Aerith does mention her boyfriend,
She mentions her boyfriend, yeah.
but it's a long time before you hear that name.
Yeah, and it's you're purposely not told about Zack until later in the original game. Zack is Aerith's boyfriend, the person that she fell in love with, who was a soldier, because she mentions that in the original and she mentions that in this. He fought alongside, or sorry, let me rephrase that. I was about to say he fought alongside. He was soldier first class. Cloud never was. Cloud never made it. He was just a run-of-the-mill Shinra soldier, and he accompanied Zack and Sephiroth to Nibelheim on that fateful moment for Sephiroth that you have flashbacks to. So he is who Cloud wants to be. He represents who Cloud wants to be and who Cloud never got to be. He's always aspired to be this. And I've always felt like that was his way of, he couldn't cope with the fact that he wasn't able to achieve his dreams. So when he goes back to see, it's a coping mechanism, but also going back to see people who, like Tifa, who he said he was going to be a soldier, and he didn't get to do it. So this is his way of, I'm going to pretend to be and live vicariously through Zack, who dies in is it Nibelheim where he died? I can't remember. No, it was part of. See, I don't remember this because it was in Crisis Core, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is.
Some last stand, apparently.
This scene that you're seeing here, this is where he dies.
Yes.
So what happens is that he's with Cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Cloud gets shot, and Zack basically like goes to town on all these dudes, but he is like mortally wounded right outside of Midgar.
Yeah.
And Cloud assumes his identity at that point. And this is the most confusing part of Remake to me, is that they show Zack walking out of here.
Yeah.
And so are they just not showing that he like died once he got into Midgar, or like are they opening up like a thing where Zack could still be alive? Did Cloud kill Zack? Like that doesn't make it. I don't think that's what would happen.
Yeah.
But there's something really. This is the part of the game that made the least amount of to me, is him walking into Midgar with Cloud, because I just don't know what they're going for there. Like, given what we know, like what we as former players of the game know about how Cloud became Cloud, how does Cloud become Cloud if Zach's still there,
Yeah.
if he can't, take on, so that's, I don't know about you, but that's literally like the part that I'm still like, I don't know
Yeah.
how to process if he's still there or not, because he's such a catalyst.
If he's there, and I will say, like, some of this is from theory crafts online, people theory crafting online, Easy Allies, and some others. The theory is because we see Biggs alive, and Biggs should be dead. Wedge, we have somehow saved. Like, every single time he should have died, like, we've somehow saved him. Biggs is alive. Wedge is alive. We have not seen Jesse. Jesse could be alive. But as soon as we destroyed the the whispers and, like, the fate, as it were, I feel like we wrecked the current timeline, and that we're going to see things be slightly off, and we're going to see people who should not be there, or people that should be dead will now be alive. I think that's what they were referencing with Zach. I think that that Aerith was feeling that that change had happened with him, and I don't think she knows what it is, because now we're going to uncharted territory. Like she says, like, we're going into the unknown or something like that. Like, if once we cross here. So I don't think she has any knowledge of what's going to happen now. I don't know if we're going to see him or what that means. But definitely I feel like that's been broken at this point. So whatever's happening further, I think they did say that it's going to continue the Final Fantasy VII story that we know, but I think we're going to have little bits and pieces in there that enhance or kind of change the story a little bit, but the majority of it I think is going to be the same.
I mean, I think there's going to be a big change in terms of the ending. Like, I think that, like, in terms of, like, a boss fight and so on, like, I feel like with the way that they've pumped Sephiroth up, like, Sephiroth's pretty powerful to be doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
So there's going to be something different there. I wonder about character deaths. I wonder if there's a change happening. Not necessarily. I no matter what, I think a character dies.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, is it the same character as originally, or is there anything that we can do to influence either way? Is there something where, like, somebody else has to either, like, sacrifice themselves to die, or, like, has or something that, like, Cloud does, or you as the player character, like, influences that? I think that there's a possibility for that.
Yeah.
Just based on what they're willing to do with Zach. Like, if they're willing to do that with Zach, I don't know. And then I also don't know if Wedge is currently alive or not. Only because when he was hurt, the Wraiths took him out the window.
That's right.
And so the Wraiths throw him out we have no idea if the Wraiths threw him out the window, or if they, like, took him into another timeline, maybe. Who knows? Like, that's where it's completely nuts. And this all comes out of this thing where I messaged Patrick, and I've said the same thing to a lot of people, because I don't feel like enough people have brought it up, but, like, the end of this game is the most Nomura thing ever. Like, and people who don't know Nomura, he's the executive producer of the game, but he's also Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts is his baby, and if you've ever played some Kingdom Hearts, like, that game is weird. Like, there's points where it's like, oh, we're just in Disney Worlds, and then all of a sudden we're in this, like, in-between universe, and they totally did that. They totally make you fight this big giant shadow guy. And, like, I absolutely loved it. I felt like just fighting Rufus would not have been enough. Fighting Sephiroth, it's like, it's too early for that. Like, it's way too early to fight actual Sephiroth, and he basically toys with you a bit, and he's like, oh yeah. But fighting fate itself, fighting the Whispers in their forms, I think was a really cool fight. I liked. I mean, I don't know if
I don't remember any characters like saying it as a prompt, but you figured out that like once they were like once the what's it like once they were down to 0, that's when you just start bashing on them, and then it takes down the health of like the main one. You found that out pretty early, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I it's kind of intuitive almost. So
Yeah.
I thought that like I think it was the first time one of them, like I was like, "What's he still doing there?" And then I just kept, because I thought, "Oh, well, he's close to death," so I just mashed on him, and I'm like, "Oh, that's how you do it." So I thought that was cool. It was subtle.
Whisper Bahamut though can get effed.
Yeah,
I hate that guy. That guy was so annoying. Like, I only died to him once, but it was the fact that I don't know if you died to him at
No.
all. I died to him once, and you have to start that whole thing over again. Like you go back to the very beginning, like outside the portal.
Mhm.
And so I respect with like materia, and I chose different weapons. I was trying to like, for some stupid reason, I was still like trying to get like experience and level materia, but I then just switched to Cloud's heavy hitter.
I never did any grinding.
No.
Yeah. That's one thing that that I thought was cool about it, was like I didn't feel like I had to grind. What's that?
What level did you finish at?
I'll have to double check. I think it was like 36.
Yeah, it's 38.
Okay. Tonberry was like the hardest fight. Like that was where I almost died. I don't remember if I died at all playing, but that was the most, and it was perfect because that's how it's supposed to be. That fight was rough, and I'm glad I don't know about you, but I had insane amounts of items towards the end, so I loaded up on. I didn't purposely load it up. I purposely bought everything at a discount, so I had like 42 Phoenix Downs at that point, and I just spammed them. Yeah.
I had life materia and prey.
Oh, that works too.
And so I had 2 prey materias. So I had a fully powered prey on Aerith, and then Barrett had another prey. And so those were the easy full heals.
Yeah.
I used some Phoenix Downs during some fights because I only bought 1 life materia.
Okay.
And so if my life user died, then it would, there was Phoenix Downs happening, and I almost wiped the Tonberry fight. I had, not counting the Leviathan, because I'm not counting that because it's an optional fight.
VR.
I had a Whisper Bahamut game over, and then I had another one randomly. Like it was against those. There's a side quest where you like fight these things that go from like resistant to physical, and then whenever you hit them with physical, then they change to resistant to magic.
Yeah.
And that switch back and forth, I just wasn't paying attention, and they just killed me. So it was like a stupid game over.
One thing I will say about it for people who, and it's one thing that I told Whitney, I'm still trying to get her to, I still think she should play it. I think she'll like it. She said she was stressed out about like the character switching and about remembering spells and stuff, but there were a lot of times, obviously there are specific bosses and specific fights where I used specific materia. A lot of times it's just very apparent. Like I'm like, oh, it's mechanical. I use lightning, right? It's classic stuff like that. But there were a lot of times where I just went through the whole game just mashing the sword or switching to Tifa and beating people up, and it was fine. But good. Your system?
I used a lot of skills. I didn't use a lot of materia spells, but I did use like a ton of skills, like because that was just so much fun. Like Tifa's so much fun. Yeah, Tifa's easily the funnest character in this game, and just the combos that you can do with her. Barrett actually turned, like I didn't like Barrett at the beginning of the game, but he turns into a lot of fun as you get more of his weapon specials. He was a lot of fun, so I used a ton of the skills. I didn't use magic for much of anything, other than cure and some life. And then there were I had 2 elemental materias, and so I put those on Cloud and Barrett and paired those with like lightning and fire, and that was what I was really using like the magic for.
Speaking of Barrett, by the way, like that's one thing, like when it first started, I think you and I were talking about that, like about the voice actor or something. I can't remember. Like we were talking about like
Yeah.
the like he's so overt, and he's like, and I'm like, it's so much like the original, but I feel like it was even more so. At first, I was worried because now you're hearing it voiced as opposed to text, and part of me was
Yeah.
like, you know, being respectful, but I was like, it almost felt like he was being like a stereotypical like angry black man, and then you realize like he's just passionate and he loves his daughter like more than anything. So it's like you have this multi-layered character that is not. He's not just an angry guy who wants to punch people. It's like he has trouble expressing himself, but when it comes to his daughter, it's like that's like his entire world. And I'm like, I love this character even more. Like that's part of Barrett anyways, but I felt like I felt like they did really well with the care of that character to show that multifacet, where he's like struggling, where he has to leave Marlene and like, telling her like that, he's got to, go back and he might not come back. Yeah, Daddy's gonna go to work. And then at the very end, where I'm so
Like a rock vibe from that.
what's that?
I totally had like a rock vibe from that, from
Yeah.
Fast and the Furious, where he rocks in the hospital and he's like, "Daddy's got to go to work."
Yep. That's how I felt about it too. And then at the very end, where he's saying goodbye to Marlene, he can't see her, but he's like, he knows he's leaving Midgar. He's hoping that she's going to be safe with Aerith's mom. Like that was like a touching moment where he's like, I need to do this for her future, because if I don't do this, then it's like he feels like that's part of his job and his duty to bring her into to set the world up for her so that she can have a better life than he did, and the planet can actually be there for her. So I thought that was emotional. I loved it.
I wonder about Marlene a little bit. Like there's something, because of that moment that she shares with Eris.
Yeah.
Like I know that was mainly Eris, but it's just weird that she has a moment with Eris like that, and it just makes me wonder if there's anything like special about Marlene. It's probably just like a little thing, and it's just like showing how Eris can chill people out, but.
Yeah.
It still gave me a brief like moment of like, so some of them Marlene.
Well, she also chills Red 13 out, and like gives him like she info dumps Red 13, like she gives him a bunch of like knowledge when she touches him, but then Marlene has the moment afterwards. Marlene has a moment at the end, in like response, like she knows something's happened. She knows. So yeah, something could be going on with her, and it's a question of it. Is it because Aerith touched her, or is she part ancient? Because we wanted to go into this really briefly, but they didn't talk. They talk about the ancients like very briefly, but they don't say hardly anything about Genova in this game. Sephiroth's like, it's my mother, blah blah blah. It's like Hojo's experiment. Genova is an alien that crashed into the planet. That was a couple thousand years prior, I think, and infected, like it was a virus or something that infected and killed so many of the ancients, the Cetra, and the Cetra had to seal Genova up in the crater, sealed Genova in the crater that it came from to protect what's left of them. So Aerith could be the last like pure blood ancient, or close to, but that doesn't mean that the lineage is completely gone. It may be diluted, where there are other people out there who have a connection to the ancients. That's how I feel about it. So maybe that's what Marlene is, and maybe we'll see other people who have this connection.
Yeah, it could be, because I mean, it could be like some exposure type thing. Who knows?
Be too, yeah.
Like, something in the water. Who knows what it is, of what they're gonna do with it. That's where like people could wonder like how much they're going to change with that.
Yeah,
I don't feel like they are. I did feel like that there was like some cool Genova stuff going on. That Genova fight was sweet.
It was wonderful.
That fight was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I was I figured out that Tifa is like second or third charge up could one hit those little the tentacles. But and once I figured that, I was just like going around. Oh, that was a good fight.
Yeah.
Boss fights, so good.
Love boss fights.
The only other thing that was where this time thing is really interesting. I do like he's obviously still toying with him, because you know that if he accepts, like, Sephiroth would like turn on him at some point. But I do like the whole like Darth Vader to Cloud moment.
Yeah.
Like where it's like, join me and we can rule, baby. You know, and I liked the pause.
Yeah.
Like there was this pause of Cloud. It wasn't very long or anything, but it was enough to, you know, where Cloud's, you know, you can tell he thought about it for at least a second before he like lifts his sword back up. But I liked this like whole, you know, edge of the world, wherever they were. I guess they were in space. It's hard to really say like what they were looking down at. Yeah, and I like that there's that moment of, you know, hey, you know, you want to change some history, dude?
And it's I think it's human. It was almost a human element of like him like feeling like, oh, it'd be like I could have all this power and it'd be easy, and it's just easy. Like, and that's sometimes it's easy to fall into that trap, but he knew it was wrong. So.
And I think that also is telling of you know, where you're probably right, where it's like they may not change much about the end of the game, because if Sephiroth's willing to do this, that means that Sephiroth isn't 100% sure that he's going to win this time either. So Sephiroth's trying to like just go easy way out of this and like wrap it up, and, you know, wrap this with a bow. I'm going to take over. But like you can see that there's intelligence there with Sephiroth, where he's not like as confident and as cocky as he is, because he is. He's not 100% confident. He still acknowledges that, like, you know, I've lost to this MF twice, man. Like, and the second time I really shouldn't have, because I was super freaking powerful. I really shouldn't have lost to him twice. You know, assuming this is like Advent Children Sephiroth, but like I've lost this guy 2 times, you know, and I shouldn't have. I'm a god.
Yeah.
I am the ruler of this planet, and so I thought that was just a cool moment at the end there of the temptation, the pause, and the fact that Sephiroth just like doesn't necessarily think it's over.
Yeah. I have some other things I want to say, but I feel like they're better kept for another episode where we talk about what we think we're going to see in the next section, like as some theory, but some like quasi predictions of like where we think this is headed, what we'd like to see, and that kind of stuff. So I think that'd probably be better left for another show, because I had a couple other things I want to say, and I'm like, no, I'd talk for another half hour if I start. So anything?
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that if you're mad about the way that this game went, as like if you're a person who played the original, I get it. I get it, but like you have to respect what they managed to do with this game. You have to respect the respect. Like they're not just toying it. They're not just doing this all willy-nilly. There is such a background here of acknowledging so many lore points and giving such a great expansion on the characters who didn't have any lore. That there's a vision. How long is it going to take for us to get this vision? Who knows? But there's a vision there.
I really hope we get the next one like late next year is my hopes. I think they have a lot of assets already done. It's just a question of can they do it in time without crunching too much. I will leave as you're talking about, I'll leave us with this thought. People who are upset about this: Thanos in Endgame and Infinity War and all the others is so different than the comic books, and they made him somehow deeper. You understood him, and I don't know a lot of people who got mad about the portrayal of Thanos I feel like this is that. It's a remake. It's a different version of. It's definitely a different timeline than the original. So the original is there. It exists. It's amazing. Get it on your Switch. And I feel like this is another way to experience and get deeper into the lore. So I loved it. Anyways, we'll talk to you guys next time. Let us know in the comments what you thought about Final Fantasy VII, and save the discussion about what you think is going to happen for our next Final Fantasy VII video, where we talk about our theories. Or you know what? Actually, comment on this if you have something really cool that you want to say, and we'll talk about it in the next video. Until next time, see you later.
Okay, bye.